Today, we are diving into a crisis that affects billions of lives. But, it often just flows under the radar. We're talking about the global challenge for clean water and sanitation.
Think about it for a second. For a lot of us, it's maybe a few seconds at the tap. We turn it on, we use it, we forget about it. But what if getting that water was a constant, daily struggle? What if it dictated your health, your safety, and even your future?
And I'm not exaggerating here. For billions of people, that's the reality. The world actually made a promise to solve this problem. But as we're about to see, we are nowhere near keeping that promise.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Back in 2015, the nations of the world, they made this really bold commitment to ensure that everyone, and I mean everyone, on the planet has clean water and sanitation by 2030. It's a clear, vital goal. So, how are we doing? Let's take a look at the scorecard. This goal, it's called Sustainable Development Goal 6, or SDG6 for short. And it's pretty comprehensive. It's not just about having some water. No, it's about having safe water that you can actually get to, that's there when you need it. And it's also about having hygienic ways to manage waste. Basically, it covers the whole shebang, from the source of the water all the way to its safe return to the environment.
So get this number in your head. 2.1 billion. That's how many people lack what experts call safely managed drinking water. Now, that term sets a high bar, but it's a necessary one. It means the water source is on-site, it's reliable, and, this is crucial, it's free from contamination. For that many people, this really basic standard is still completely out of reach.
And if you thought that number was big, look at sanitation. The gap is even wider. We're talking 3.4 billion people using facilities that don't safely contain or treat human waste. And this creates such a dangerous cycle. It spreads disease through whole communities and pollutes the very water sources that people have to rely on.
So here's the kicker. We aren't just a little bit behind schedule. To meet that 2030 deadline, we would need a radical, almost unbelievable acceleration in progress. We need to be working 6 times faster on drinking water and 5 times faster on sanitation. The bottom line is, we are fundamentally, drastically failing to keep pace.
These massive numbers can start to feel a little abstract, right? It's easy for our eyes to just glaze over. But behind every single percentage point is a person, a family, a community. So let's look at how this data translates into a very personal daily crisis for millions.
In so many parts of the world, a basic private toilet just isn't a given. I mean, look at this data. In countries like Niger, Chad, and South Sudan, the practice of open defecation is still shockingly high. And this isn't just a statistic. It is a direct cause of widespread disease and contamination.
And this really hits home the point that this isn't just a health problem. It's an issue of dignity, of safety, and of equality. The lack of safe and private facilities puts this huge, disproportionate burden on women and girls, making them more vulnerable every single day.
And when you really dig into the data, you see that the water crisis is, in so many ways, a gender crisis. It's women and girls who are overwhelmingly responsible for collecting water, a task that can eat up hours of their day. They experience higher levels of water insecurity, and the lack of private facilities, it presents a massive obstacle to managing menstrual health safely and with dignity.
Okay, so the big question is, why? What is holding us back from solving a problem we've known about for decades? Well, it's not just one thing. The challenge is more like a cascade, interlocking with some of the other major crises facing our planet. Let's talk money. This number, $114 billion, that's the estimated price tag to fix this every single year. That's roughly 3 times what the world is currently spending. It just highlights this massive and often inconsistent funding problem. Why? Well, these kinds of long-term investments often have to compete with more immediate political priorities, which makes commitments unpredictable and stalls progress on the ground. But here's the thing. We have to completely flip how we think about that number. It's not just a cost to be paid. It is one of the smartest investments we could possibly make in our collective future. And the return on that investment? It's staggering.
The World Bank estimates that for every single dollar you invest in water and sanitation, societies get about $4 back in economic benefits. That's through better health, increased productivity, fewer healthcare costs, you name it. It is one of the most effective development tools we have, full stop.
And then, as if things weren't complicated enough, you've got climate change, which is basically pouring fuel on the fire. More intense droughts and floods are damaging already fragile water infrastructure, making safe water even harder to come by. And this is directly linked to health emergencies, like the recent global surge in cholera,
where a new case was being reported every 45 seconds. It's a vicious cycle.
So I know this sounds pretty huge, complicated, maybe even a little bleak, but it is not hopeless. The path forward requires a systemic approach. We have to focus on the levers that can create real, lasting change.
A huge piece of the solution is all about governance. Just look at the difference here. This table shows the stark contrast in access between stable countries and those in fragile situations. Access to safe water and basic hygiene is nearly 40 percentage points lower in fragile contexts. That tells you right there that stable institutions are an absolute prerequisite for progress.
See, it's not just about building pipes and pumps. It's about building systems, creating smart policies, and fostering trust between governments and communities so they can manage water resources effectively, especially as the climate keeps changing. Without good governance, that new infrastructure will just eventually fail.
But, and this is a big but, governance itself can be manipulated. There's research from Jordan's mining sector that shows how powerful players can shape the public conversation, basically shifting the blame for water scarcity onto nature or politics instead of their own intensive water use. And that kind of talk, it actively gets in the way of real solutions.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. The way forward requires a whole toolkit, not just one silver bullet. First, we need smart, predictable funding. Second, we need effective governance, what experts call integrated water resources management, which is just a fancy way of saying we need farms, cities, and industry to all coordinate. Third, we have to protect and restore the natural ecosystems, the forests, the wetlands that our water cycles depend on. And finally, none of this works without empowering local communities, especially women and girls, and demanding an honest conversation about who uses water and why. The crucial takeaway is that all these pieces have to work together.
And that really leaves us with this one fundamental question. As we face growing scarcity and competing demands, is water just another commodity to be managed and sold, or is it a basic human right that must be guaranteed for all? How we choose to answer that, well, it will determine everything. It will decide whether we finally fulfill the promise of clean water for all, or if we just keep leaving billions behind.